Chapter 91 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 23. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yu Wenmo rushed into Luoying Palace. Seeing Zuaixin Pavilion engulfed in flames, his heart seized. It felt like his insides were tearing apart, leaving him completely drained. His eyes were bloodshot, burning with a wild, desperate light. He stumbled towards the fire, his heart leaping when he spotted her. Seeing Yun Yuran standing there, disheveled and weeping, pierced him with pain. Shaoran. He pulled her close, ignoring everything, and kissed her deeply. He clung to the kiss, desperate, as if only through it could he confirm she was real. He was terrified of losing the light in his life. When Zhao Jieyu heard about the fire, she froze, sweating and shaking. No, I can't panic. His Majesty can't find out it was me. She couldn't sleep, a mess of nerves waiting for news. If Yun Yuran's burned to a crisp, the thought flickered a spark of sick satisfaction. Once she's gone, the Emperor will be mine. But the memory of last night gnawed at her, leaving her unsure. After a moment, Yun Yuran gently pushed him away. Your Majesty, she whispered, I can't face anyone like this. Yu Wenmo reluctantly released her, his voice thick with worry. Are you alright? I'm fine now, Your Majesty. Just scared. Seeing you makes everything better. Yu Wenmo's blood-red eyes narrowed, a storm brewing within. He turned to Xiao Detzi. What happened here? Xiao Detzi avoided his gaze, bowing low. Your Majesty, I spoke with Mammy and Ingqiu. Ingqiu said she and Mammy saw two shadowy figures sneaking around. Afraid to raise an alarm, they knocked the figures out, but as they were about to call for help, they saw flames erupting from the Empress's room. Suspecting something was amiss, they woke everyone to fight the fire. I rushed over, and seeing the fire was still small, I went inside. The Empress was unconscious. I couldn't wake her, so I splashed her face with herbal tea. That's when she came to. Then we ran out. Ingqiu stepped forward, bowing respectfully. Your Majesty, the fire was spreading fast, so I sent Ningxuang to alert you. I hope she found you. Yu Wenmo nodded. As long as everyone's safe. As for Zuaixin Pavilion, let it burn. I came when Zhao Gao reported that a palace maid had told him about the fire. That must have been her. Yun Yuran looked surprised. You came so fast, Your Majesty. When I heard your place was on fire, I used Qin Gong. Thank you for saving me, Your Majesty. I almost thought I'd lost you. Yun Yuran said, her voice trembling with emotion. Yu Wenmo pulled her close. Don't be afraid, Shaoran. I'll protect you and get you justice. Yun Yuran leaned into his embrace, still shaken. Her voice was filled with trust. I believe you, Your Majesty. Soon, the commander of the royal guard arrived with his men to put out the fire. Yu Wenmo looked at the bound palace maid and eunuch and addressed the commander. Take these two to the Justice Department. Torture them until they reveal who put them up to this. Yes, Your Majesty. The guard bowed. I want to know who's bold enough to set fire to my harem. Yu Wenmo's eyes were cold, and his presence radiated menace. The fire was eventually extinguished, leaving behind a ruined palace, smoke and ash everywhere. Yun Yuran looked up at the Emperor. Your Majesty, where will I live now? Don't worry, Shaoran. There are plenty of palaces. There'll always be room for you. Zhao Gao hurried to Luoying Palace. Zhao Gao, have Yaohua Palace prepared. Concubine Chen will move in tomorrow. Zhao Gao looked up, startled, at Yun Yuran, now concubine Chen. Yun Yuran was equally surprised. Your Majesty, Yu Wenmo stroked her cheek gently. You've suffered enough injustice under my watch, Shaoran. This promotion is my way of making it up to you. System, this can also increase your position. Why don't you let people set off a few more fires? Maybe after a few times, you will be promoted to the queen position. Yun Yuran's face was filled with black lines. She was speechless and ignored the system. Thank you, Your Majesty. Yun Yuran gave a curtsy of thanks, and the Emperor took her hand. I should be thanking you. Please stay by my side from now on. I will. Let's go back to Qianqing Palace. Yu Wenmo held Yun Yuran close and returned to his palace. The next day, Yun Yuran didn't wake until noon. Yingqiu, Ningxuang. Hearing her call, Yingqiu and Ningxuang hurried into the room. Are you awake, mother? Yingqiu held the water basin, and Ningxuang helped Yun Yuran to sit up. Ningxuang, bursting with excitement, said, Your Majesty, this morning the Emperor ordered concubine Ro and Zhao Jieyu stripped of their titles, given white silk and poisonous wine, their families were implicated too, demoted from their posts, their homes seized, and exiled to Ningguda. Yingqiu handed Yun Yuran a handkerchief. I heard His Majesty uncovered many spies planted by their families in the palace. They were executed immediately. The incident caused chaos in the harem. Anyone with something to hide was exposed. Those who had committed crimes were executed, and the rest were kicked out of the palace. Yu Wenmo hadn't expected such treachery, spies infiltrating his inner sanctum. After the bloodbath, the harem was in a state of panic, everyone terrified of being exposed. No one dared to provoke Yun Yuran anymore. They avoided her like the plague. They were afraid of accidentally crossing her, which could bring ruin to their families. Their families sent them to the palace to gain influence, not to cause trouble. Even the smallest clue could bring everything crashing down, from confiscation to beheading. For their family's sake, they would rather act subservient. If a child came along, they might be willing to take a gamble, but the emperor showed them no favor, so how could they have children? Once, someone drugged the emperor, and that concubine had her hands and feet cut off and was turned into a human pig. That was why the harem hadn't dared to make any false moves for so long. The emperor had used brutal example to instill fear. Chapter 92 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 24. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After the concubine Ro/Zhao Jieyu incident, the harem went quiet. The women holed up in their palaces, only emerging for daily greetings. They watched, green with envy, as consort Li and the imperial concubine's skin grew softer and fairer each day. Soon, they were scrambling to buy Yun Yuran's lotion, but when they arrived at Yaohua Palace, they discovered the price had jumped again, a staggering 3,000 taels of silver per bottle, enough to make them see red. Still, remembering the imperial concubine and consort Li's improving complexions, they choked back their curses and went to scrape together another 1,000 taels. That month, Yun Yuran moved 100 bottles of her lotion, raking in a cool 300,000 taels of silver. That night, Yu Wenmo arrived at Yaohua Palace, and Yun Yuran eagerly pulled him into the inner room. Yu Wenmo assumed her impatience stemmed from a desire to join him on the battlefield. He kept quiet, but secretly, he was thrilled. He wasn't the only one addicted to the other, she was equally addicted to him. Let's conquer the battlefield together, reaching a peak of pleasure both physically and mentally. His eyes gleamed with anticipation, wondering what new tricks she had planned for him tonight. What's this? Yun Yuran gestured to several boxes, then opened them one by one, showing off and saying, Your Majesty, look. I'm pretty awesome, right? Her eyes sparkled with expectation. She was practically begging for his approval. A smile played on Yu Wenmo's lips. My Xiao Ran is amazing, he said adoringly, as if she'd accomplished something truly incredible. Thank you, Your Majesty. I think I'm pretty awesome too. I managed to siphon all the money from the harem into my own pockets this month. Yu Wenmo burst out laughing, his shoulders shaking. Your Majesty, what are you laughing at? Yun Yuran looked confused. I'm laughing at your shamelessness. You're so smug. What's so funny about that? They willingly gave me the money, so of course, I'm smug. Besides, it's not like they got nothing out of it. I even gave them a set of waist slimming exercises and a set of breast enlargement exercises. Yu Wenmo playfully tapped her nose. My Shaoran has seduced me into running to your palace every day and seduced all the concubines' money. You're a charming little minx. Yun Yuran grabbed his hand, threw herself into his arms, and playfully nibbled his Adam's apple. I only charm you, Your Majesty, she purred. Yu Wenmo lowered his head and kissed her lips. What about Sharon's fox tail? Yun Yuran returned the kiss. It's in the back, she whispered, she took his hand and placed it on her rear. Yuanma's eyes darkened. He turned her around, held her waist, and said, "Let me see." Sure enough, there's a tail, and it's stolen my soul. The passionate sounds of lovemaking continued until dawn. After Yuanma put on his dragon robe, he went to the bedside and gently kissed her forehead. "I'll be back to have lunch with you." Yun Yuan took his hand and said, "Your Majesty, please use the money I showed you last night to help with the disaster relief after you go to court. I know you're worried about the drought in Zhengzhou, and I want to help, even if it's just a little." Hearing this, something inside Yuanma shifted. He was deeply touched that someone understood and shared his burdens. He pulled her into a tight embrace, wanting to hold her forever. "Xiaoran, my Xiaoran, you're the first person besides my mother who's been so kind to me. You give without expecting anything in return. Your Majesty, I'm not as selfless as you think. Who says I don't want anything in return? I want you, Your Majesty. Okay, Xiaoran, I'll repay you with myself. Just don't get bored of me in a few days. I'll love you forever, until the seas run dry and the mountains crumble, Amo." The way she said Amo was music to Yuanmo's ears. His eyes welled up as he covered her face with kisses. Finally, Yun Yuan gently pushed him away. "Your Majesty, it's time to go to court." Yuanma said in a hoarse voice, "Say, Amo, again. I like hearing you say it. Amo. Again. Amo. Good. We'll use that from now on." He looked as warm as a clear spring. Yun Yuan's face flushed, her eyes shining. "Okay, I'll call you Amo in private." "That's great." Yuanma nodded, his heart pounding. In the end, he was too late, and Yuanma reluctantly went to court. The hibiscus tent warms the spring night. The spring night is short and the sun rises high. From now on, the king will not go to court early. He finally understood the poem. He didn't want to go to court, he just wanted to be with her. After the emperor left, Yun Yuan got up. She had to go greet the Empress Dowager every day. It was exhausting. When they arrived at the Empress Dowager's Sinang palace, she simply warned everyone to stay safe and avoid causing trouble. After the queen mother left, Consort Li called to Yun Yuan, "Concubine Chen, please stay." Yun Yuan stopped, looked at her, and asked, "Is something wrong, Sister Li?" Consort Li looked embarrassed. "Concubine Chen, you're of a higher rank than I am now. You can't call me sister anymore. What does it matter? You're older than me, so it's fine." "Then thank you, Concubine Chen, for promoting me. Sister Li, just tell me what you want. Don't be shy. I'll help if I can." Chapter 93 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 25. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Concubine hesitated. "Chen Concubine, so, you remember I bought another bottle of your lotion?" Yun Yuan nodded. Li Concubine continued, "Well, I bought it for my mother. She loved it. Said it worked wonders. She told my third brother all about it. My brother isn't into politics, he's a businessman, and he has shops all over. When he saw how good the lotion was for Mom, he thought, hey, maybe we could partner up. So, I was wondering if that's something you'd be interested in." Yun Yuan paused. "Partner how?" Seeing Yun Yuan wavering, Li Concubine perked up. "You just give him the recipe, and he'll split the profits 50-50. Sound good?" Yun Yuan felt a twinge of guilt thinking about her beauty pills. She only had 18 100-point pills left in the store. If she used them all, they would be 500 points each when she needed them for the child later. "Actually," Yun Yuan began, "I'm not going to partner with anyone. I'm thinking of opening my own shop. I'd have more freedom that way, less complicated business." Li Concubine's face fell, seeing her disappointment. Yun Yuan added, "But your brother could still buy stock from me after I open my shop. He'd pay 2,500 taels a bottle, then clear 500 taels profit on each one. I only have one condition. He can't sell them here in the capital. I only want one store like that in Beijing. Tell him to think it over. If he agrees, he can start buying stock when the shop opens." Li concubine's face brightened a little. Okay, I'll tell him as soon as I get back. Back at Yaohua Palace, Yun Yuran called for Mama, Ingxiu, Ningxuang, and Xiao Detzi. She got straight to the point. I want to open a store in the capital. I need someone to manage it. Mama, Ingxiu, Ningxuang, would any of you be interested? They answered in unison, we don't want to leave you, Your Grace. We want to serve you forever. I don't want you to leave either, but I don't have anyone else I can trust. It's just you three. If you don't want to, I don't know what I'll do. She put on a disappointed face. They considered this and said, can we talk it over first? Yun Yuran waved her hand. After they left, Yun Yuran turned to Xiao Detzi. Who do you think would be the best fit? Xiao Detzi replied, I think Ingxiu would be good. She's got a sunny personality. She's lively, but she's also collected. She gets along with people, which is good for business. Mama is too strict. She doesn't know how to adapt. And she doesn't want to leave the palace. Ningxuang is calm and smart, but she's better off staying here to manage things for you. Yun Yuran stared at Xiao Detzi. And what about you, Xiao Detzi? You wouldn't want to leave the palace? Xiao Detzi immediately answered, absolutely not. Why? First, I don't want to leave you. Second, I'm just a eunuch. I don't want people to look at me any differently. Yun Yuran's level 4 superpower could, in fact, restore Xiao Detzi's manhood, but if he became a normal man, he couldn't stay by her side. She didn't want to lose such a smart and capable person. Yun Yuran asked tentatively, if I had medicine that could make you a man again, would you want it? Xiao Detzi looked stunned. Really, Your Grace? Yes. Xiao Detzi thought for a moment. I don't want to leave you right now, so no. Why not? It's a chance in a lifetime. Xiao Detzi hid his true thoughts, his face remaining gentle and expressionless. I can't bear to leave you. I want to be loyal to you for the rest of my life. Yun Yuran saw right through him, but she pretended not to notice. Yun Yuran decided to be honest. Xiao Detzi, I know what you're thinking. Xiao Detzi jumped. He looked up at her and immediately knelt. Your Grace. He started to explain. But Yun Yuran cut him off. Xiao Detzi, I'm touched by your feelings, but you need to understand that I only love the Emperor. My heart belongs to him. I can only be loyal to him. I can't have anyone else. Your Grace, my feelings are my own affair. Don't worry, I won't bother you. Please don't send me away. I'll be different. I'll stop having these feelings, just let me stay. I want to be a knife in your hand. I'll kill whoever you tell me to. He lay on the ground, pleading. The system, enjoying the drama, commented, Xiao Ran, you're irresistible. Even a eunuch is head over heels for you. He's practically going to throw himself against the wall. Looking at Xiao Detzi kneeling on the ground, she added, well, he's throwing himself on the ground, anyway. Yun Yuran rolled her eyes. Just watch quietly. Don't distract me. The system pouted. Seeing his pitiful state, Yun Yuran said, it's not that I don't trust you, but I'm afraid you won't be able to control yourself, and that would be dangerous for both of us. You know how ruthless the Emperor is. He doesn't tolerate any rivals. If you slip up, you could get yourself killed and get me beheaded in the process. Xiao Detzi stopped kowtowing. He looked at the beautiful woman and said, I promise I won't let anything show. Just don't send me away. I don't want to be a man again. I want to be here for you, to protect you. I don't need anything in return. Just seeing you happy makes me happy. I only want to stand beside you and protect you. Moved by his words, Yun Yuran softened. I won't stop you from having these feelings, but you have to understand that I can't reciprocate them. You'll never get anything from me, and if I see you're getting out of line, I'll send you away or kill you without hesitation. She wasn't joking about that last part. I know. From the moment I started thinking about you that way, I knew I had no chance. I don't expect anything. My only wish is to see you happy. You're the most beautiful flower in the world. Only the Emperor is worthy of you. The system gushed, "Wow, Xiao Ran, I'm so touched. Just protection, just companionship. This is pure love." Yun Yuran, also moved, looked at him gently, with no hint of reproach. Chapter 94 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 26. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As long as you behave yourself, I won't say anything more. I like people like you, smart, capable, and thoughtful. I hate to see you go. Not everyone is as useful and reliable as you are. Xiao Detzi beamed at Yun Yuran's words, his face splitting into a wide smile. Your Majesty, don't worry. I won't cause you any trouble. I'm not looking for anything in return, just a chance to ease your burden. He reiterated his loyalty. Alright, your wish is my command. I guess I can grant this little request. Thank you, Your Majesty. You're the best. There's no master as kind as you in the whole world. Yun Yuran shot him a playful glare. Stop buttering me up. They both composed themselves, returning to their usual demeanor. It was as if nothing had happened. Soon after, Ingqiu and the others returned. Have you all decided? Yun Yuran asked, her gaze intense. Mammy replied, Your Majesty, we've discussed it. Ningxuang and I both think Ingqiu is the one. She's quick-witted and a natural at business. As for me, I'm better suited to managing the palace staff. I'm not very adaptable, and I don't have the gift of gab. I'd probably scare off customers if I tried to run a business. Ningxuang is smart and level-headed, perfect for staying here with you. The environment around you can be dangerous, and you need a personal maid like her. Yun Yuran and Xiao Detzi exchanged glances, thinking the same thing. Okay, then Ingqiu will go out and make money for me. She looked at Ingqiu. You'll have to work hard. There are a lot of mouths to feed in the palace. Ingqiu grinned. Relax, honey, you're loaded. With how fast you make money, you don't need anyone to support you. Yun Yuran turned to all four of them. Have some people bring the boxes from my warehouse and bedroom outside. They didn't ask why, they just did things quietly. They gathered all the servants, and it took them half an hour to move the 5 large boxes from Yun Yuran's bedroom and the 24 large boxes from the warehouse. They placed everything in the yard. Each box contained 10,000 taels of silver, and 300,000 taels of silver contained 30 large boxes. She kept only 10,000 taels of silver from selling lotions to prepare for emergencies, and donated the rest. Even though Yuanma was tough, he was a good emperor who cared about the country and its people. He frequently allocated funds for disaster relief and for the soldiers guarding the border, but even a full treasury couldn't keep up with the demands. Right now, there was a drought in Zhengzhou, and he needed to allocate funds to buy grain, keeping him incredibly busy. The ministers always claimed to be loyal, but when money was needed, they ran faster than rabbits. Yuanma used every trick in the book to squeeze some money out of them. It was enough to buy food for disaster relief, but there wouldn't be any extra. Yun Yuran's sudden donation of 290,000 taels of silver would definitely help solve Yuanma's immediate problem. The treasury had money, but he couldn't touch it. He'd already emptied it. What would the soldiers at the border do when winter came? What would he do if another disaster struck? You can squeeze ministers for cash, but there's a limit. Doing it once or twice a year is fair. After court, Yuanma led the imperial guard to Yaohua Palace. When he entered the palace gate, he was shocked by the sight of so many boxes in the yard. He was in disbelief. He had only seen 5 boxes the night before. Did he really think it was just those 5 boxes? Xiao Ran, is that all of it? He asked, surprised. Yep. Are you surprised? Totally. Yun Yuran said, it's a total of 290,000 taels of silver. I hope it helps you out. Xiao Ran, I want to thank you on behalf of the people. You're a true little lucky star. Your Majesty, you're exaggerating. It's my pleasure to ease the people's suffering. Since I'm by your side, of course I want to work with you to ensure everyone lives in peace and prosperity. Even Zhao Gao was moved. She was such a thoughtful woman. His Majesty needed a sensible and considerate woman like her by his side. Yuanma looked at the 10 imperial guards behind him and ordered Zhao Gao, get 20 more imperial guards. Yes, Your Majesty. Even with 30 guards, they had to make 2 trips to move everything. Yu Wenma stayed in Yahua Palace until lunchtime. Later, in the bedroom, Yu Wenma hugged Yun Yuran and asked softly, "Shaoran, you gave me so much money. What can I do to repay you?" Yun Yuran thought for a moment, looked at the emperor, and asked, "Anything I want." "Call me Amo," Yu Wenmo insisted. "Yes, Amo." Yu Wenmo rubbed the top of her head and kissed her cheek. "Good girl." She stared straight at the emperor. "Amo, can I have anything Shaoran wants?" "Yes, anything. Even the position of empress, I would give it to you." Yun Yuran pouted. "What's so great about being an empress? You have to be proper all day, acting virtuous, generous, dignified, and elegant. It's exhausting. The worst part is, I couldn't be all lovey-dovey with you. Instead, I'd have to encourage you to spend time with other women, so I won't have to push you to others. Amo belongs to Shaoran, body and soul. If Amo isn't pure, Shaoran will never talk to him again." Yu Wenma saw her getting upset, her face scrunched up in a frown. He wanted to laugh, so he pinched her soft, white cheeks. He said, "You're so bossy." "Humph." Yun Yuran said, annoyed, without looking at him. "It's not like you just met me. I've always been strong-willed and demanding. I can't stand being slighted." Even if she hadn't said it, Yu Wenma knew she was definitely strong-willed and demanding. "Okay, I like that about you. It shows you care about me. I'm also pretty headstrong. We're a lot alike, we're a match made in heaven." Yun Yuran jumped up and said fiercely, "Shaoran is not trash." Yu Wenmo touched the tip of his nose and spoke quickly, using the wrong word. He said awkwardly, "Well, neither of us are trash." Yun Yuran wanted to laugh, but she had to hold back, or the emperor would be even more embarrassed. The majestic emperor likens himself to garbage. Whoever hears it wants to laugh. Even the system was laughing so hard that it couldn't stand upright. Yu Wenma said solemnly, "Shaoran, tell me, what reward do you want?" Chapter 95 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 27. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Amo, Shaoran wants to open a shop outside the palace. Is that okay with you? That's it. Yun Yuran nodded. Shaoran doesn't want to be useless. She wants to do something that makes her feel worthwhile. I can agree to that, but you can only send someone to manage it. Yu Wenma's eyes held a serious intensity. Yun Yuran saw a chance to get out of the palace for a bit. Amo, can Shaoran go out every now and then? Seeing the hopeful look in her eyes, Yu Wenma couldn't bring himself to say no. You can go, but only if I'm free. I'll go with you. Okay. Hearing the emperor's agreement, Yun Yuran lit up and planted a big kiss on his cheek. Thank you, Amo. You're the best. Seeing her eyes sparkling with excitement, Yu Wenma felt a surge of pride and satisfaction. Shaoran, what do you mean by the best? He hadn't heard that expression before. Oh. I'm just saying you're handsome and totally awesome. She traced his eyebrows, nose, and lips with her slender fingers. Your face is so perfect. It's like it's been imprinted in my heart. It makes me feel so captivated, so excited I can't help myself. Yu Wenma took her hand, held it tight, and kissed her palm. It's my honor that you like me so much, Shaoran. Amo, you're such a sweet talker, like honey. You make my head spin, and I lose all track of time. Yu Wenma pressed his forehead to hers, touching the tip of his nose to hers, feeling their breathing mingle, close together, their hearts beat in unison. After their tender moment, Yu Wenmo returned to dealing with state affairs. He wanted to stay a bit longer, but Yun Yuran urged him to go, promising to try out some new moves later that night, and he finally left, though reluctantly. Yu Wenmo transferred ownership of 2 of his best shops in the capital to Yun Yuran. Once Yun Yuran had the deeds, she sent Ingqiu out of the palace to oversee the store's renovation. With money in hand, the shop was renovated and staffed within a week. Ingqiu sent a letter to Yun Yuran. After reading it, Yun Yuran bought a beauty pill, a fairy maiden's grace pill, and a stunning beauty, sparkling eyes pill from the mall system. she ground the 3 pills, added water, mixed it all thoroughly, and poured the mixture into a porcelain bottle. Yun Yuran planned to make 200 bottles of skin lotion each from the Fairy Maiden's Grace pill and the Stunning Beauty, Sparkling Eyes pill. Because those 2 pills were more effective than the beauty pill, she'd priced them higher. Then the basic moisturizing lotion made with the beauty pill. Yun Yuran planned to launch the basic lotion first, then introduce the others. She drafted a plan to get 2 more farms from the emperor. She'd use one farm to grow roses, and the other to grow aloe vera. She'd make the toner with Fairy Maiden's Grace pills, roses, and the lotion with Stunning Beauty, Sparkling Eyes pills, and aloe vera. The plant extraction would be simple: steam and squeeze, then combine with the pills. The results would be amazing. For the farm workers, she considered using disabled veterans. Their lives weren't great after retirement, and many were rejected by their families. Things were better in the modern world, with decent benefits for disabled veterans, but in ancient times, some veterans and disabled soldiers were abandoned and even starved to death. Thinking of this, Yun Yuran's heart ached. Well, she thought, I'll just help where I can. The red-topped porcelain bottle would hold the elixir of beauty and purity. The blue-topped porcelain bottle would hold the potion for a stunning look and bright, sparkling eyes. The green-topped porcelain bottle would hold the beauty pills. Yun Yuran wrote a letter to Ingqiu, asking her to start sourcing roses and aloe vera and to write down the production steps. The roses would need to be prepared with the potion in the red-topped bottle. With one potion able to make 200 bottles of toner, aloe vera would be prepared with the potion in the blue-topped bottle. With the same yield of 200 bottles of lotion, the green-topped bottle would still be made with cucumber juice, with one bottle making 100 bottles of lotion. The new toner and lotion would be priced at 4,000 taels of silver per bottle. The standard lotion's price would remain the same. She folded the letter, put it in an envelope, and gave it to Xiao Detzi. Xiao Detzi, get someone to Ingqiu outside the palace right away. Tell her she can't do it all alone. She needs to start finding some trustworthy people, maybe orphans or beggars. Yes, Empress. I'll see to it immediately. Xiao Detzi took the envelope and hurried off, afraid of delaying Yun Yuran's plans. That evening, after dinner, Yun Yuran showed Yuwenmo the plan she'd written. As Yuwenmo read through it, he grew visibly moved, especially the part about hiring disabled veterans. His dark eyes started to glisten. He'd been wrestling with how to help those veterans, but before he could figure out a solution, Yun Yuran had come up with this plan, and he could barely contain his emotions. Despite rumors labeling him a tyrant, he held a strong place in the people's hearts. The people can lift you up or tear you down. Win their hearts, and you conquer the world. No matter how brutal he was, as long as he gave the people a good, stable life and kept the country from falling into chaos, they'd accept him as emperor. Those rumors couldn't shake his position. That was why the ministers both hated and loved him, yet were powerless against him. Even though he was ruthless and killed on a whim, many ministers remained loyal. Even his hatred of women and lack of children were tolerated. What else could they do? The tyrant was firmly entrenched in the people's hearts. Xiao ran. Yuwenma set down the plan and called out to Yun Yuran with deep emotion. He pulled her close and held her tightly, burying his face in her neck. Yun Yuran sat on his lap, wrapping her arms around his strong waist, letting him rest against her. She could be his rock, giving him a place to lean on when he was weary. Thank you, Sharan. You're my lucky star, and the lucky star of those veterans. Hearing his husky voice, Yun Yuran gently patted his back, stroking him as if soothing a child. Amo, I'm here with you. I won't take your kindness for granted. Her voice was soft and melodic, with a calming power. Chapter 96 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 28. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yuwenma didn't hesitate, immediately gifting her 2 estates in the Beijing suburbs, complete with the property deeds. Xiao Ran, what else do you want? What are you planning? Just tell me. If it's within my power, I'll do it. Okay, thanks, Amo. Yun Yuran was overjoyed, clutching the deeds. She hadn't expected Yuwenma to entrust her with the imperial estates. Regardless of whether her plans would succeed, Yun Yuran shared her ideas with Xiao Detzi. After hearing it, Xiao Detzi was impressed and admired her vision. Xiao Detzi, I can't leave the palace myself. I want you to take charge of this. Are you willing? Yes, I am. Xiao Dezi replied without a second thought. What the Empress was planning was important, and he was happy to help. Even though her skincare products were pricey, she wasn't hoarding the profits. She was mostly using them to aid disaster relief, keeping just a bit for herself. He felt lucky to serve such a mistress. Okay, since you're heading out, first check for any corrupt or bullying individuals at the estates, deal with them, then have the grounds renovated. After that, start sourcing flower seeds and seedlings. While you're out, find some trustworthy people to train. Have them put out notices, inviting disabled people to come and cultivate the flowers. You can't be away from the palace permanently, and I need someone I can rely on. So, this person needs to be completely loyal and of good character. As long as they're capable, I don't care if they're a man or a woman. Yun Yuran pointed to 2 boxes. Xiao Dezi, you'll be managing the estates this time. Once the disabled people are settled and trained, which might take a couple of months, come back to the palace, take this money with you. It'll be helpful for expenses. Housing, feeding, and clothing the veterans and disabled folks who come to the estates will cost a lot. Make sure they're well taken care of and treated fairly. If they're able, even with their disabilities, organize them into teams to protect those who are more seriously disabled, or to guard the estates. Also, each estate has a factory. Those with good dexterity can farm, while those with limited mobility can produce skincare products in the factory. Assign those who can't use their legs to picking petals and crushing aloe vera, and those without arms to patrolling with those who have full use of their limbs. We need to ensure they don't feel useless, worthless, or like they're freeloading, but anyone who just shirks their duties will be asked to leave, disabled or not. Yes, Your Majesty, don't worry. I'll handle everything perfectly. Yun Yuran handed him 2 more pieces of paper. Xiao Dezi, while you're out, send someone to find these plants, find as much as you can and bring them back. They're very important to me. Xiao Dezi looked at the drawings with a puzzled expression. He didn't understand what these 2 plants that looked like trees and vines with fruits underneath were. Empress? He looked at Yun Yuran, confused. Yun Yuran smiled and pointed to the drawing of the potato. This is called a potato, and it's a food crop. It produces a massive yield and can grow almost anywhere, regardless of the soil or climate. The leaves are arranged alternately, varying in size, about 4 to 8 inches long. The leaflets are oval or oblong, with a dark green surface. The flowers are white or bluish-purple. Potato skins can be white, yellow, pink, red, purple, and other colors. She pointed to the other drawing. This is a sweet potato. It's also edible and has a high yield. Sweet potato leaves are single leaves, with the petiole length varying depending on the variety. Some are short, 2 or 3 inches, and others are over a foot. The leaves come in many shapes, even on the same plant. They're generally heart-shaped, pointed heart-shaped, maple leaf-shaped, or palm-shaped. The leaf edges can be smooth or notched. The leaf colors vary from shades of green, brown, and purple, with the newest leaves being light green, green-brown, or purple. She described them so thoroughly because she was afraid that, if she sent someone to look for them, they might bring back something she didn't want. As Yun Yuran spoke, Xiao Dezi immediately grabbed his notebook and took notes. Yun Yuran smiled at him, appreciating his dedication. Seeing her smile, Xiao Dezi felt warm, happy, and fulfilled. He said softly, "Your Majesty, I've memorized it. Don't worry, I promise to have someone find them and bring them back to you." Good. Even if you only find one of each, have them brought back. I know how to cultivate them. Yes, Empress. Xiao Dezi bowed respectfully. He summoned some of the guards Yuanhua had assigned to Yun Yuran to load the 2 boxes of silver onto the carriage, and then left the palace. Yun Yuran had taken the 2 boxes of silver from her system space, using her powers to erase any markings. There were so many gold and silver treasures in her space, it would be a waste not to use them. Even though they were 2 large boxes, it was only 40,000 taels of silver, which might not be enough. She figured Xiao Dezi would just send a letter back if he needed more. Accommodating the disabled would be expensive, including building houses and buying food, clothes, and shoes. The other expenses wouldn't be too bad. Before she knew it, Yuanhua's birthday was only 5 days away. He wasn't planning a huge celebration, just a small gathering with some top ministers and their families, and Yun Yuran's shop had finally opened. the palace concubines had been using her lotions, and the word had spread. Everyone knew Yun Yuran had a product that could make you beautiful. But since she was in the palace, many couldn't get their hands on it. Someone had let slip that the store was where she would be selling her lotions. Ladies of high society had been sending people to hang around near the store every day, trying to find out the opening date. People were lining up. Most of the capital's residents were wealthy and influential. Even though Yun Yuran's lotion was expensive, there was still a huge demand. On opening day, the store was packed. Yu Wenma and Yun Yuran were in the room across the street, speechless. Yu Wenma had never seen people practically fighting to buy something, and at such a high price. Didn't they think it was expensive? They had 300 bottles of skincare products. The store had barely opened when everything was sold out. At first, the clerks had been worried that they wouldn't sell a single bottle, given the price, but before nightfall, every single product had been snatched up. They were stunned by how many rich people there were. Libi's third brother ordered 50 out of the 100 bottles of lotion at 2,500 taels of silver each. The rest was sold in store. Chapter 97 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 29. You are listening at novelfull.audio. There were 500 skincare products in total, but on opening day, they only sold 100 bottles of moisturizing water, 100 bottles of toner, and 100 bottles of beauty lotion. Libi's third brother bought 50 bottles of lotion for 125,000 taels of silver, another 50 bottles of lotion sold for 150,000 taels of silver. The 100 bottles of toner brought in 400,000 taels of silver. The 100 bottles of skin lotion also sold for 400,000 taels of silver. In total, the 300 bottles of skincare products earned 1,075,000 taels of silver. Back at the palace, Yu Wenma was floored when he saw the accounts. At this rate, they'd equal the entire national treasury in less than a year. Yun Yuran smiled. So, am I raking in the dough or what? That Yu Wenma gave her a thumbs up without hesitation, clearly impressed. Zhao Gao, Yu Wenma called, his face composed. Zhao Gao hurried in and bowed low. Your Majesty, you summoned me. That Yu Wenma instructed, get the commander of the Royal Forest Army. Tell him to take his troops to concubine Chen's shop and transport all that silver back to Yaohua Palace. With so much silver sitting in the shop, he was worried about theft, but using the Royal Forest Army was also a message. Leave the shop alone. Don't even think about messing with it. Everyone knew concubine Chen ran the place, but that wouldn't deter desperate people. Keeping the silver under his nose was the safest bet. Seeing Yu Wenma call in the troops, Yun Yuran smiled. Thanks, honey. Once it's back, send half of it to the treasury. Yu Wenma refused. No way. You keep it. Anything you want to do, you do it in your own name from now on. I don't want you giving and giving without recognition. I want you to be as respected as I am in the eyes of the people. A woman as kind, virtuous, and caring as she was deserved more than just the title of concubine. She deserved to stand beside him at the top, looking out over the world. Yun Yuran clearly hadn't expected that. She tilted her head, puzzled. Why? Yu Wenma cupped her cheek in his hand, his voice soft and low. Because I want you to be my queen, my wife. Yun Yuran was touched, but she still pretended to be reluctant. I don't want to be queen. There's no freedom. I'd have to be all virtuous all the time, and deal with all those women in the harem, all of them. She started to say more, but he cut her off. If you don't like them, I'll kick them all out, and you don't need to pretend to be virtuous. You already are. Yun Yuran stared, stunned. She couldn't believe Yu Wenma would even consider dismissing the entire harem for her. Really? She asked, eyes wide with excitement. Of course, really. My word is my bond. I wouldn't lie to you. But will the ministers agree? Won't they fight you tooth and nail? Let them try. He shrugged. If anyone dared to stop him, they'd better be squeaky clean, or he'd make an example of them so fast their heads would spin. If I'm queen, can I still be sassy with you? Can I still be myself? Can I still fight back if someone messes with me? Not having to be proper and measured all the time sounded exhausting. The original owner didn't even want to be queen, she just wanted to be a beloved concubine. beloved concubines got to use the emperor's power to push people around. They could pick fights without holding back, Yu Wenma smiled. Once you're queen, who would dare mess with you? You have to play the role in public, but in private, you can do whatever you want. No need to hold back. Just be yourself, and yeah, you can still be sassy and playful with me. Yun Yuran was thrilled. She mentally poked the system. Did I win him over or what? He didn't exactly swoon at my feet, but he's basically shutting down the harem for me. The system confirmed, given his behavior lately, his softer demeanor, and the absence of that violent streak, the conquest is successful. Right now, you're all he sees. Yun Yuran was ecstatic. Only 2 tasks remained, producing an heir and becoming queen, and she was already halfway to both. Seeing her happy, Yu Wenma knew she'd agreed to be his queen. He didn't want to wait. I'll write the edict now and announce it to the world. Yun Yuran pulled him back down. No rush. Wait until after your birthday. Though he didn't understand why, Yu Wenma trusted her. Okay, right after my birthday, I'll make the announcement. Yu Wenma hugged her tight. Finally, I'll have a queen. Yun Yuran looked up at him. Why didn't you have a queen before? Every time I looked at those concubines, I just wanted them gone. How could I pick a queen? Hee, so I really lucked out. I found a treasure. They held each other close, completely content. That day was the emperor's birthday, but the queen mother didn't allow the harem to pay their respects. She got up after the emperor left for court. After washing up, she sent her nanny to the imperial kitchen for eggs and milk. Then, she pulled out all the supplies she'd been gathering. She started baking a cake. She worked on it until the morning, finishing just as the banquet was about to begin. The servants of Yahua Palace stared at the elaborate, 3-tiered cake, wondering what it tasted like. The scent had filled the palace all morning. It was so distracting that they could barely focus on their work. They kept glancing toward the kitchen. Once the cake was done, Yun Yuran started getting ready. She was quick about it, and naturally beautiful. Ning Shuang styled her hair, and she did her own makeup. Before long, a stunning woman with bright eyes and a dazzling smile appeared in the mirror. Ning Shuang was in awe. Mother, you're gorgeous. I can't even find the words. Yun Yuran smiled slightly, a captivating expression. Ning Shuang was mesmerized, her heart racing. A few more smiles like that, and she might just fall in love. The thought sent a shiver down her spine. She bit her lip. That was a scary thought. Yun Yuran arrived late. When she reached the hall, the eunuch saw her and bowed respectfully. Greetings, concubine Chen. Rise, Yun Yuran said softly. Thank you, your grace. The eunuch watched her enter and announced in a loud voice, Concubine Chen has arrived. Thanks for the gifts, everyone. You're the best. Chapter 98 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 30. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When the announcement was made, everyone turned to the palace entrance. A breathtakingly beautiful woman, seemingly in a trance, walked slowly forward. Every eye brightened at the sight of her. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. I'd heard Concubine Chen was beautiful, someone whispered, but I never imagined she'd be this beautiful. Absolutely. It's no wonder the emperor's completely smitten. The ladies present murmured their agreement. Just looking at her felt uplifting, like being immersed in a cool ocean breeze. Stunning. It was easy to see why the emperor, who supposedly disliked women, had fallen for her. Who could resist such beauty and charm? Before, people thought Yun Yuyu was the epitome of beauty, but Yun Yuran outshone her by far. Everyone rose and bowed. Greetings, Concubine Chen. With a serene smile, Yun Yuran replied in a voice like music, Please, be seated. The emperor, noticing the hungry gazes fixed on Yun Yuran, cleared his throat loudly. The young men, startled by the emperor's cough, snapped back to reality. They had lost all composure, completely captivated by His Majesty's favorite concubine. Would he punish them? Remembering the emperor's ruthlessness, they quickly lowered their heads, avoiding her gaze. Yun Yuran was well aware of the admiring stares, but she ignored them. From the moment she entered the hall, her eyes were solely on the emperor at the head of the table. He was her everything, her gaze was soft, full of affection and love for him. It was that love, visible in her eyes, that kept the emperor from being angered by the attention she drew. No matter how others might admire her, he knew her heart was his alone. She was beautiful and radiant, and he wouldn't deny others the pleasure of admiring her. She deserved to be admired, both by the common people and those in court. She was like a perfect, pure moon in the sky, deserving of everything. The emperor was utterly bewitched by her, past the point of reason. He wanted to lock her away, keep her beauty hidden from everyone, but he couldn't bear to see her suffer because of his jealousy. Yun Yuan approached the emperor and said softly, "I have come to pay my respects, your majesty." Her reflection was mirrored in the emperor's eyes. Hearing her gentle voice, his smile widened. "My dear," he said, his voice full of warmth, "there's no need for such formality." They had to maintain appearances, even if their affection was hardly a secret. The ministers exchanged glances at the emperor's adoring smile. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The emperor never smiled like that in their presence. In their experience, the emperor always wore a serious, stern expression, never showing his emotions, but from the moment concubine Chen entered the hall, his usual aura of power and solemnity had vanished, replaced by a soft, warm glow. The oppressive feeling was gone. The ministers felt a weight lift from their shoulders and let out a collective sigh of relief, while they were there to celebrate the emperor's birthday. They had been on edge. The ministers who worked closely with the emperor were somewhat accustomed to his presence, but the ladies were different. They had heard the rumors of the emperor's cruelty and had been on their best behavior since arriving, afraid to break any rules. They feared even a slight misstep could lead to severe consequences. The emperor's supposed dislike of women was well known. After greeting the emperor, Yun Yuan turned to the Queen Mother. "Greetings, Queen Mother. I apologize for my lateness." The Queen Mother smiled. "It's perfectly all right, the banquet has only just begun. Please, take your seat." Yun Yuan bowed slightly. "Yes, Queen Mother." Her seat was next to the imperial concubine, who turned to her. "I hear you've prepared a surprise for His Majesty. I wonder what it could be." After 2 months of observing her, the imperial concubine had come to realize that while Yun Yuan had the emperor wrapped around her finger, she wasn't arrogant or overbearing. Plus, her lotion actually worked. So, her resentment towards Yun Yuan had lessened. She could see that the emperor's interest in women began and ended with Yun Yuan. She no longer wished to compete for his attention. Instead, she decided to build a good relationship with Yun Yuan, making her life in the palace easier. Given the emperor's obvious affection, she would likely be empress someday. After the emperor's last purge of the harem, the imperial concubine had given up any hope of being named empress. Wasn't it better to live in peace? She didn't want to risk her family's well-being because of unrealistic dreams. Life was too short to waste on such things. All she wanted now was a stable life and for her family to be safe. Her father had once written a letter urging her to seduce the emperor, but when she saw him, with his imposing and cold demeanor, she was terrified. She couldn't bring herself to approach him, fearing that her head would roll before she could even attempt to seduce him. The memory of the emperor sentencing concubine Ro and Zhao Jieyu to death in front of all the other concubines was still fresh in her mind. Their bodies, covered in horrific wounds, were a chilling reminder. Yun Yuan smiled at the imperial concubine. "You'll see soon enough. My gift will definitely be memorable." Seeing Yun Yuan's sly grin, like that of a fox, the imperial concubine decided to stop asking questions and simply wait to see this memorable gift. The banquet began with music and dancing, followed by the presentation of gifts. First, the concubines presented their gifts, then the ministers. When everyone else had finished, all eyes turned to Yun Yuan. Everyone wondered what she would give the emperor. The other concubines were especially curious, having heard she planned to surprise him. Yun Yuan whispered something to Mammy, who then left the hall. Yun Yuan turned to the emperor. "Please, wait a moment, your majesty." Yuanma nodded, smiling. He eagerly anticipated Yun Yuan's gift. Chapter 99 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 31. You are listening at novelfull.audio. About 15 minutes after Mammy left, she returned with 4 young eunuchs carrying something large. It was square, draped in cloth, so you couldn't tell what it was. They placed it in the center of the hall, and Yun Yuan said, "Your Majesty, would you care to come take a look? Yuanma walked over to the thing. Yun Yuran slowly unveiled the cloth, and the eunuchs folded down the four sides. Yuanma's eyes widened. It was a stunning three-tiered cake, flowers, patterns, and various fruits decorated it. The top tier had "Happy Birthday" written on it, with a carved wooden tableau above. It featured rockeries, flowing water, flowers, trees, and a little cabin. The cabin door was closed, and four tiny figures stood in the yard. They were incredibly lifelike, and three looked exactly like Yuanma himself. One sat at a desk, meticulously reviewing a document, frowning in concentration. Another, a stern warrior with a cold aura, held a gleaming sword, ready to strike. The third held a woman's hand, gazing at her with infinite tenderness. The woman looked back, smiling, her whole world reflected in his eyes. Yuanma was captivated by the four little figures. His excitement was palpable, despite his attempts to conceal it. The cake was huge, the tableau expansive, the scene almost alive, like a dream. Each figure was thick as an arm, their expressions vividly carved, as if perfectly replicated. Seeing the emperor's delighted expression, Yun Yuran asked, "Your Majesty, do you like this birthday gift I made? I did it all myself, well, mostly. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's the most unique gift I've ever received." Yuanma gazed at Yun Yuran, his expression mirroring the gentle figure on the cake. Gentle, considerate, his eyes overflowing with affection. Yun Yuran continued, "It's called a cake. Eating cake on your birthday is supposed to ward off bad luck and bring good fortune. I hope everything goes well for you, and all your wishes come true." Yuanma was deeply touched. "My dearest concubine, your thoughtfulness is overwhelming. I will ensure everything goes smoothly, and all my wishes will come true." He personally removed the tableau, carefully wiping off any stray frosting. "My beloved, I also have a surprise for you today." Yun Yuran was taken aback. "You do, Your Majesty?" Yuanma smiled. "You'll see soon enough." "Okay." Everyone watched the emperor and Yun Yuran, a mix of envy and shock on their faces. Yun Yuran's gift, while not the most extravagant, was certainly the most heartfelt. The carvings on the tableau alone must have taken days. Of course, they didn't know about Yun Yuran's special abilities, which made carving a breeze. She had simply arranged for the materials to be delivered in advance. The rockeries, flowers, and trees looked incredibly realistic. Yun Yuran directed the maids to cut the cake, offering the first slice to the Queen Mother, and then distributing the rest to the guests. Though the cake was large, the crowd was larger, and everyone only got a small taste. Yun Yuran cut out a heart-shaped piece, held it out to the emperor, and said with a bright smile, "Your Majesty, I offer you my whole heart." The emperor took it adoringly. "I accept it, my beloved." He lowered his voice. "I'll consume it and keep it in my heart, forever intertwined with yours." Ooh la la. The system was speechless. This emperor was laying it on thick. Everyone praised Yun Yuran's skill, and the cake was a hit. Someone said, "The cake is rich, aromatic, and the aftertaste is heavenly. It's soft, enticing, and unforgettable." Another echoed, "The flavors are complex, with milky sweetness, a charming appearance, and a fragrant fruit aroma. It's so relaxing and enjoyable, leaving a delightful taste in your mouth." Who knew concubine Chen was so talented? She's a woman who can hold her own in court and in the kitchen. No wonder she captivated the emperor, who usually hates women. Beauty alone isn't enough. How could His Majesty be so obsessed if she was just an empty vessel? Exactly. From the moment Yun Yuran entered the palace, Lu Ming watched her with a complicated expression. If he had married her, he would be standing next to that radiant woman, but it was too late. She was the emperor's now, forever out of his reach. Yun Yuyu was consumed by jealousy. If she wasn't in the palace, she would have slapped Yun Yuran. She was already the emperor's concubine, yet she shamelessly flirted with other men. She had finally won Lu Ming's heart, only for him to be distracted by Yun Yuran. She suppressed her anger, gritted her teeth, and gripped her handkerchief tightly. She was afraid she would lose control and do something that would anger the emperor. Taifu Yun and Mrs. Yun were also deep in thought. Taifu Yun was surprised that his daughter, whom he barely knew, had captured the emperor's attention, and that she was so incredibly beautiful. Although she and her older twin were related, Yun Yuyu's beauty paled in comparison. Yun Yuran was like a rare and precious flower. Just one look at her could make people feel at peace. Mrs. Yun worried that Yun Yuran would seek revenge on Yun Yuyu. The emperor was clearly smitten with her. All it would take was a whisper in his ear. No matter what they thought, Yun Yuran didn't look at them once. Yun Yuran turned to the emperor. Your Majesty, I have one last birthday gift. The last one is the surprise for you. Yuan Mo was surprised. Weren't all of those for me? Yep. Yuan Ma was excited, but he responded, I want to give you the surprise I prepared first. He winked at Zhao Gao. Chapter 100 The Treasure in the Palm of the Murderous Emperor 32. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing the emperor and Zhao Gao acting all mysterious, Yun Yuran felt a thrill of anticipation. What kind of surprise had the emperor cooked up for her? Then, a eunuch approached Zhao Gao, bearing a tray. Zhao Gao lifted an imperial edict from the tray and began to read. The empress's seat has been empty for over a decade, and I have weathered the storms alone. Now, Chen Yun, my esteemed concubine, possessing virtue and grace, gentle and kind, dignified and virtuous, and caring for our nation and its people, embodying beauty, peace, and justice, is fit to be my queen. As my partner, she will inherit the ancestral temple and become the mother of the world. I hereby bestow upon her the golden book and phoenix seal. Upon this decree, she shall become the lady of the 6 palaces. A proclamation to the world will be made, with the coronation ceremony to follow in 1 month. Everyone dropped to their knees. They never expected the emperor to announce Yun Yuran as the queen today. Yuanmo took the tray holding the phoenix seal and walked slowly toward Yun Yuran. Yun Yuran stood in stunned silence. The system chimed in. Shaoran, grab the phoenix seal. Take it, and you're the queen. Snapping back to reality, Yun Yuran's eyes welled with tears. She immediately knelt and raised her hands. Yuanma placed the tray in her hands, helped her up, looked at her with passionate eyes, and said in a low, husky voice, take the phoenix seal, and you shall be my queen. Yun Yuran, her voice trembling, replied, I will manage the 6 palaces well, ensure the prosperity of the royal family, and give you children. Yuanma's breath hitched. He knew he was incapable of fathering children but didn't know how to tell her. The queen mother visibly paled, barely containing her anguish at the banquet. Yun Yuran glanced at Ningxuang, who then slipped away. The crowd prostrated themselves, chanting in unison, Long live the emperor! Long live the emperor! Long live the queen! Yuanma pulled Yun Yuran to his side, raised his hand, and said, Esteemed guests, please, be seated. Thank you, your majesty, thank you, your majesty, the queen. Everyone rose and returned to their seats. Many ministers glanced at Master Yun, who was visibly thrilled. His daughter was to become the queen. He had struck gold. Yun Yuyu's expression was a mix of emotions. If she had entered the palace, this glory would have been hers. Giving birth to the emperor's children would have made her the most powerful woman in the land. Now, she was filled with regret. Lu Ming was all right, but he paled in comparison to the emperor. His abilities were nothing compared to his majesty's, and he certainly wasn't as handsome. Why had she been so foolish, trading a treasure for trinkets? Yun Yuran, from her elevated position, didn't miss Yun Yuyu's look. A calculated smile touched her lips. Yun Yuyu had disregarded their sisterly bond, pushing the original owner into the palace without a thought for her well-being. The original owner had died alone and uncared for, her many descendants offering no comfort. Not this time. Yun Yuran subtly activated her powers, sending a strand toward Yun Yuyu. Where it vanished into her body, Yun Yuran used her powers to block her. Fallopian tubes. She had heard that Yun Yuyu had recently given birth to a daughter, so a son would never be in her future. This time, Yun Yuran's family would be blessed with children. The original owner might have resented Yun Yuyu and the Yun family but still held a sliver of familial affection, never wishing them harm. Soon after, Ningxuang led the head of the imperial hospital and an imperial doctor into the hall. Everyone wondered what Yun Yuran was planning. They were filled with question marks. Yuanmo looked equally puzzled and turned to Yun Yuran. Yun Yuran announced, Your Majesty, the surprise I've prepared for you is. Seeing that she had paused, Yuanmo couldn't wait to ask, What is it? Yun Yuran looked at the crowd and said in a clear voice, I'm with child, over 2 months along, almost 3, and I'm carrying twins. Yu Wenma's face changed drastically. What? His hands trembled slightly. The Queen Mother was equally shocked. She leapt from her seat, rushed to Yun Yuran, and seized her hand. She asked with a trembling voice, Is this true? Her hand ached from the grip, but Yun Yuran fought back any cry of pain. She said slowly, Your Majesty, the Queen Mother, I'm indeed pregnant, with twins. Hearing Yun Yuran's confirmation, the Queen Mother was shaken. She was so excited that her lady-in-waiting quickly supported her, saying, Empress Dowager, please, take it easy. Ha ha ha, heaven hasn't forsaken my son. She laughed with unrestrained joy. Both of Yun Yuran's hands were now tightly gripped, one by the Emperor and the other by the Queen Mother. Forced to make a decision, Yun Yuran addressed the Queen Mother, then looked at the Emperor with a pitiful gaze and said, Your Majesty, my hand hurts. Hearing the distress in Yun Yuran's voice, the Queen Mother came to her senses and looked down. Her hold had indeed turned Yun Yuran's hand red. The Queen Mother quickly released it. Queen, forgive my excitement. Don't be angry. The Queen Mother then slapped Yu Wenma on the arm and scolded, Emperor, release her hand now. Didn't you hear the Queen say that her hand hurts? Yu Wenmo quickly retracted his hand, his thoughts elsewhere. He immediately took her hand and examined it closely to assess any damage. He had been so overcome that he hadn't been mindful of his strength. Seeing the bewildered Emperor, Yun Yuran said, Your Majesty, summon the imperial physician to confirm. Yun Yuran wanted everyone to witness her pregnancy, silencing the ministers who were constantly urging the Emperor to adopt an heir. Yu Wenma's voice was shaky. Yes, of course, imperial physician, come quickly and take the Queen's pulse. Restraining himself due to the crowd in the hall, he was barely stable. His ears were ringing, his head was spinning, and his legs felt weak. Afraid of falling, he dared not move. The scandal would be humiliating. Having known early on that he was not destined to have an heir, he had never asked for one. Yun Yuran was much younger than him, so he had planned to select a younger child from the clan, to be adopted and raised by Yun Yuran after her coronation as queen, cultivating a bond from childhood would ensure that Yun Yuran had someone to rely on after his passing. The sudden surprise had caught him off guard and nearly overwhelmed him. As the 2 imperial doctors stepped forward to offer their greetings, the Queen Mother immediately said, Queen, please, sit down quickly, don't exhaust yourself. The Queen Mother tried to guide her to her seat, but Yun Yuran refused. Queen Mother, no, that's inappropriate. If I ask you to sit, you sit. The Queen Mother insisted. Yun Yuran relented and took the Queen Mother's seat. The 2 imperial doctors knew about Yun Yuran's pregnancy from 2 days ago, when Yun Yuran had asked them to check her pulse. The diagnosis of twins had shocked and excited them both. Yu Wenma's eyes were somewhat glazed over, and his voice trembled with excitement as he asked, Imperial physicians, Queen,